Hey folks, Lenny Lawson here, the car guru. I'm really getting excited. I'm pumped. My hips feel a little bit better. And I'm getting ready to go to Amelia Island, which is on the coast or the east coast of Florida near Jacksonville, if you're not familiar. It's a really nice place for vacationers. A little different kind of an island. It's not really like Hilton Head. It's a little bit more commercial than that. There's a little town called Fernandina Beach that's really quaint and has really good restaurants, great seafood. But yeah, it's an annual brother trip along with another group, some other guys that go with us. And we just have the best time. It's just a guy thing. There's no ladies allowed. No offense. I threatened to bring my wife one time, and the guys threatened me. So, not going to do that anymore. But we drive down. My brother lives in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and the other guys that go with us live in that area. So they go down through Chattanooga and down 75 to get to Amelia Island, and I go the other way. I go to Asheville and down 26 to, 95? All the way down. So I'm by myself, but I don't mind. You know, usually I take an old car with me. So I get my F-150, hook a trailer up to it, and I'll put something cool to drive on the back of it. And then I'll park my F-150 at a friendly Ford dealership down there. He doesn't mind. He lets me leave my trailer and my truck there, and I'll drive, a 65 Mustang around or a Volkswagen bus. I took a VW bus down there one time. Had the best time. People just love it. But I go down there, to be with my brother, but also go down to experience the history of the car business. Well, not the car business, really cars in general. The history of the automobile is on incredible display there. You see things at Amelia Island at the Concours d'Elegance, sponsored by Hagerty. That's the full name. You see things there that you just don't see at a local car show in Elizabethton. I mean, nothing wrong with the car show in Elizabethton or Johnson City or Greenville or wherever. But, you'll see a lot of 60s and 70s and a lot of 80s. Some of the young guys are bringing 80 model cars or cars from the 80s and early 90s even to some of the local car shows. You don't see that at Amelia Island. You see cars from the teens and the 20s and the 30s and then a very valuable Ferraris. I mean, one year, I think they were from the 1960s. I think they were mostly from 1962, if I'm not mistaken. My brother would know for sure. But yeah, these are this very valuable, the most valuable Ferrari is called a Ferrari GTO. And it was used in racing. There were some sold to individuals that were not raced. But these cars, I think there are 29 that are still in existence, or maybe there's something in the low 30s. And 23 of them were at this car show. And they were, transported from all over the country and all over the world. The last one to sell at auction brought $70 million. So these are high rollers that are coming to this show. And so why do they come? Why do they transport their cars? Why do all these people bring all these Rolls Royces and Packards and Auburns and Cords and Porsches and all these race cars and custom motorcycles? Why do they do this? Basically for the prestige of it. Because you don't just show up at the Amelia Island Concours d'Elegance. You don't just show up with your 55 Chevy and say, "Where do I park?" No, they'll turn you away. You have to be invited to show your car there. I know it's kind of snobbish, isn't it? But it is fun to witness. For the plebes like me and my buddies, we walk around, we buy our tickets, and we walk around. We get hungry, we'll go to the hot dog stand. We're not eating filet mignon or anything like that. We are just there for the cars. We're not there for the prestige. But it is fun. You will see some famous people there, too. I was sitting there one day and looked over, and I said, "Wendell, is that guy important?" He said, "Yeah, that's Dan Gurney. Pretty important racing guy." It's just one famous person after other. Famous in their world. Not necessarily famous in your world. It's just like, the guy that did the thing, Hedy something or other, Lamar, or is that his name? That did the Super Bowl halftime. Never heard of it. Plus, I couldn't understand anything he said. So I didn't enjoy the halftime show that much. I liked it better when Michael Jackson was there. My favorite was Dean Martin and the Rat Pack when they did their thing. I'm just kidding. They didn't do a Super Bowl show. I don't think they had Super Bowls back when those guys were hot. Okay, I'll take my first break. I'll be back here in just a minute. I've been running into a lot of folks lately, either through the phone, email, personal invitations to me to come look at cars in garages. I love it. I really do. And a lot of folks have cars that aren't worth anything. They've been holding on to this stuff because of, their uncle had the car ever since or for as long as they can remember, or their daddy did. And it's sitting in a garage and it hadn't started for 30 years. It's got boxes stacked all over it. It's time. They're moving into a condo and they've got too much room and too much stuff. And they need to get rid of it. So I'm getting a lot of those phone calls, and I'm going to look at these cars. And I'm telling most of the folks that, there's not a great market for this car. Somebody will want to buy, a 62 Ford Fairlane, 4-door, automatic, with a 6-cylinder engine. It's just got nothing going for it except their history. So, they either need to keep it or maybe cut the whole front end off of it or the back end and turn it into a couch and put it in their man cave. That would be a good way to preserve it. Take good pictures of it first before you start cutting and then do that. Poor folks, they just don't know what to do. They don't know where to go. They don't know what's valuable, what's not. Typically there's some general rules of thumb when it comes to whether an old car is worth anything. And one of those things is, was it popular when it was new? That's not always the best guide, because a lot of cars that were not popular when new turned out to be very valuable when old. But yeah, you've got to think about certain things. Like, for example, if it has 4 doors, that's a big negative. There are certain examples that are worth a lot, like an old Packard, something from the 30s, maybe a few cars from the 40s, not many. Of course, there weren't many cars built in the 40s. Like from 41 to 45, no cars were built unless it was for the military. And then everything that came out after 45 was basically models that were carried over from the 30s, and the technology wasn't that good. They didn't grow out of that until the early 50s. But yeah, if it has 4 doors, it's not worth much. Now, if it's really odd, for example, a 4-door, say 63 Chevy Impala, that happens to have a big block motor, a 409 in it, and it has a 4-speed manual transmission, that is odd enough to be worth some money, even though it has 2 extra doors. But that's a rarity. 2-door vehicles, sports cars, that they're valuable. Any old trucks now, if it's what they call a square body Chevrolet truck, if you have one of those from 1973 to 1987, and especially if it's a short bed, but even if it's a long bed, if it's not completely rusted out, it's worth some money. You don't need to just send that one to the crusher. Older Ford trucks from the same era, they're really gaining in value. I can't believe what I'm seeing with these old Ford trucks. I saw one on Bring a Trailer that had been slightly modified, but it was pretty much original. It had been lifted. They put big wheels and tires on it, and really detailed it good, but they didn't paint it. I mean, it had paint peeling off of it everywhere, but it didn't have any solid, rust that was like going completely through a body panel. So what was it worth? $42,000. 10 years ago, that's a $5,000 truck. But they've gotten hot. A lot of these young people like those old trucks. Of course, old Mustangs are worth a lot of money. Not a lot of money, all of them. For example, If it's a fastback Mustang, it's more rare. If it's got a six-cylinder, that hurts it. If it's got a 289 V8, it's the original engine, and you can prove it. They don't have engine numbers on them that match the VIN. That's the only problem with those old Fords. Chevrolets do. Chevrolets have matching numbers that are stamped on the block, and it's actually a part of the VIN number. Back then they had, I think, 13 digits in the VIN number. So you can match up a Chevrolet engine to the car, and that makes a lot of difference. If you don't have an original engine vehicle, it can drop anywhere from 10 to 25% of the value, especially if it's a sports car like a Camaro. Or it could be any vehicle that has a special engine. I mean, you can, like I said, you can have an old Chevrolet or a Ford or a Pontiac or an Oldsmobile for that matter. If it has a big block motor, like a 455 or a 429 or a 460, in a truck, those people like big blocks. And it does make a difference in the value. But if it's not original, it hurts it. Now, there are a lot of people who like to take original cars that are in bad shape and what they call resto mod them. They'll put a modern engine and drivetrain in a very old car. Ricky Parton, who owns Parton's Hot Rods here in Greenville, he's working on a 70 Mustang that the guy took the old engine out. I think it was what would that have been? 351 possibly. Could have been a six-cylinder for that matter. But yeah, he took all of the original components out and he put a modern Coyote V8. That would be out of a modern Mustang. So it's a 5-liter, fuel injected, has probably a 6-speed manual, or it could be an automatic transmission. But they'll pull those old drivetrains out and put the new ones in, and that'll add 50% or more to the value of it. The key thing about these old cars is, first, what do you have, and what needs to be done to it? Is it valuable enough to take it back to what it was when it was new? If not, then is it something that is interesting enough to do a resto mod on? And then the third choice is just leave it alone. Make sure that the engine is right, that all the fluids are changed, that it's safe, that it will stop, that it will stay cool, that it has safe tires on it, and you just drive it and you enjoy it. I don't want to drive an old car. Well, I totally understand that. A lot of people don't. They don't realize how crude they were. But you're moving to a condo. What are you going to do? Buy a storage building? Just let it sit in there and rot? Everything has value. And so if you've got some old 4-door car with a 6-cylinder that's old, that was a family heirloom or whatever, you're under no obligation to keep it. I mean, I understand sentimentality. I get very sentimental about a lot of different things. But if you can't drive it and you can't enjoy it, you need to let it go, and you need to let somebody else that is interested in it enjoy it. Let that car live. I mean, that's what your relatives would want to happen. They don't want that thing sitting in a garage. Let it go to somebody who's going to enjoy it. Put it on Facebook Marketplace. I mean, there's somebody probably out there that's just looking for a 1962 Ford Fairlane with a 6-cylinder in lime green. The thing is that you just need to get started. When my mom passed away in 2021, I couldn't get rid of anything. Thank goodness that we didn't have to sell her house immediately. We could let it just sit there with all her stuff, all mom and dad's stuff in there. But as time went on, I started feeling better about unloading some of the stuff because just the perspective changed. The emotional attraction to that was starting to get set aside for, with my logical mind. Now, there's some things that I still have. They went to China many, many years ago and brought back some Oriental rugs you can't find rugs like this. These things are so heavy. This is an 8x10 rug that it's all 2 men can do to lift it. It's that heavy. It's that well made. Well, what do I do with that? Nobody wants Oriental rugs anymore. So I put it in a warehouse with a lot of their other things, couches. I rented a storage warehouse. It was just the final stuff that I couldn't get rid of. And I've been paying $200 plus a month for this air-conditioned, heated storage place, and that stuff is just sitting there. And it just took time. It took time for me to be able to adjust and to realize that, okay, this stuff needs to go. And so the first thing I thought about was that rug. And I had a rug in my music room where I pick the guitar and read and study and look at old stuff. It's just my man cave. And I said, this rug would look good here. I'm just going to put it there. So my wife finally relented. She said, okay, it's your room, your rug. Do what you want. So I brought it over there. It looks great. But there's a whole bunch of other stuff now. On next Tuesday, I'm meeting a moving company, and I'm going to move the rest of the stuff out. And I'm going to find a home for it. And I'll probably cry. But once you get past that, you've done a good thing. You've made somebody else's day. And, you've blessed another family with some really precious things that you don't need anymore. And old cars are the same way. So if you have something that's old that, you wonder what it's worth, you just don't know, then I can help you with that. You can call me, 423-552-2020, and I'll tell you if it's worth anything. And if it is, I'll help you sell it. I mean, I've sold just under $3 million worth of vintage cars on a website called bringatrailer.com. And the beauty of that website is you don't have to go anywhere to sell something on there. You just have to get the car out, clean it up, take about 100 pictures, tell the story, get all your documents together, anything that's ever been done to the vehicle, take pictures of those, write a narrative out about the history of the vehicle, fill out their form, submit it. If they accept your car to sell it, based on what, if you want to reserve or not, you can sell it without reserve, or you can put a reserve on there. You just have to agree with them what the reserve is. You know what it costs to sell a car on Bring a Trailer? It's not 10 or 12% like Mecum Auctions charge or some other place. Down at the Gooding auction, they'll charge anywhere from 12 to 15% to the buyer and to the seller. But Bring a Trailer charges $99. And they only charge 5% to the seller, to the buyer, and has a maximum, I think, of $3,500. It may be $5,000. But what a deal. I mean, you don't have to worry about transporting your car anywhere or anything. Now, they won't sell everything on Bring a Trailer. It has to be something, semi-rare, semi-unusual, although I see a lot of four-door cars on there. You'll see a lot of Jeeps, old Wranglers. You'll see Broncos, of course. A lot of Porsches. Occasionally you'll see a Packard or something like that. It's just, motorcycles, old signage. There's a lot of signage on that site right now. If you've got any old Sinclair signs or Esso or anything like that, it's a great place to get top dollar for it. But the thing is, where it is, it's doing nothing right now. It's just taking up space. And yeah, it might be sad, to see it be listed, for sale on a website, on an auction, and to say goodbye to it. But you're doing a good thing. You're letting it live on in somebody else's life. And to me, that's important. Okay, I'll take my last break. I'll be back here in just a minute. My brother decided to sell his 1962 Austin Healey 3000. It was a beautiful car, and it was sitting in his garage all the time. He went an entire year and never moved it. Tires went flat. Battery went dead. Beautiful car. Needed to go to a car show. Needed to be seen by people. He needed to drive it and enjoy it. Finally, I convinced him. I said, Wendell, you need to sell that thing. He said, what do you think it'll bring? I said, I really don't know. Let me do some research. So I did some research. And, under normal circumstances, it should bring between $28,000 and $35,000, somewhere in that neighborhood. He said, well, if I could get $30,000 for it, I'd be tickled to death. I said, okay, you get it up here, and up to my dealership. I'll do all the pictures, and I'll put it on Bring a Trailer, and I won't charge you one dime. You can maybe take me out to eat." He said, "Deal." So that's what we did. Got it running, replaced the battery, aired up the tires, took it out and did a photo shoot. And I bet I posted probably 125 pictures of that thing. It was red, resale red, and it looked really good. The pictures were great. I submitted it to Bring a Trailer. They accepted it with a $30,000 reserve. So the auction started. It's a 7-day auction. And so you just kind of sit there and wait. People make comments. They ask a lot of questions. That's a great thing about Bring a Trailer. It has a comment section. It's great, and it's not so great because they can say things about your car. They can cut it. They can be non-helpful, okay? But this car really didn't have any downside. It was a very good restoration, probably a 20-year-old restoration, but it was still good. Paint was still great. And so I answered all their questions as the sale progressed, and it was like $15,000, then it'd go up to $16,000, and my brother was watching it as well, and he said, "Do you think it's going to hit the reserve?" And I said, "Well, you never know, Wendell. At least you have a reserve." So the final day came, and it was the countdown to the last 10 minutes, and then there was some activity, and it got up to got up to the mid-20s, and it just kind of hung there. And I called him. I said, "You want me to drop this reserve a little bit? Let me drop it." He said, "Okay, make it $28,000." So we dropped it to $28,000. Well, there are 2 minutes left in the auction, and man, it takes off. And these two guys start bidding against each other. It hit the reserve, and then it hit $30,000, and then it hit $35,000. And I'm sitting there saying, "Yippee!" As the thing's going. I know my brother was going nuts as well. At the end of the auction, brought $52,500. I should have asked my brother for more money, but I didn't. He was very happy. The guy who bought it was very happy, and I ended up selling the guy who bought it several other cars in the process. But that's what can happen. That's what can happen to your car if it's a special car, or maybe even not so special. It'll end up bringing more than you think. But you have to understand that the car actually may be worth less than what you've imagined. So that's where you need a dose of reality, and that's what I'm here to give you. Just give me a call, 423-552-2020, or give me a text and send me an email, lennylawson2020@gmail.com, and let's work together on this. Let's get that thing sold. Let's get some money in your pocket. Get that basement cleaned out. I know your wife will appreciate it. Well, thanks for listening to this edition of My Car Guru. We'll see you next time.